I think most people will be very interested to know what the commercial ramifications are of President Xi's speech to the Arab League countries in terms of future cooperation. His first focus was on how to give vitality to innovation in various sectors like life sciences, AI, green technologies, and so on, the creation of 10 joint laboratories, including the possibilities of collaborating on space and other innovative or new leading technologies that would be beneficial to the next generation and future generations of China and Arab League countries. I think this is significant because this comes on the heel of Belt and Road First Decade. Belt and Road First Decade was really on building infrastructure, and very significant progress has been made for Belt and Road countries, including the Arab countries, in building the infrastructure that's required to advance their technology development and economic development. So what we have now is actually Belt and Road version 2.0, which is more advanced infrastructure, including digital infrastructure. And of course, the basis has been laid for co-scientific development in these other sectors as well, including life sciences, which is very, very important and which has been very dominated by the developed countries over the centuries. The second area of enhanced cooperation is actually very important tools to be provided for joint development and joint progress, and that is the accelerated and expanded collaboration in finance. This includes many things, one of which is, of course, the use of local currency in settlement of trade, which increases efficiency in trade as well as increases or lowers the cost of transactions. And included in this are several things. I think it is significant to note that the issuance of panda bonds is included in the offer to the Arab countries. What are panda bonds? Panda bonds are bonds issued through financial institutions, either international or domestically Chinese, issued by foreign countries or foreign corporates, and so on and so forth. This is very significant because 6 months ago I spoke to a number of senior members or government members of Arab League countries about the fact that if they're facing budget deficit and they have to issue bonds, they've been issuing them in US dollars, which is 6% interest at least, if not higher. But if they issued RMB bonds, interest rate could be as low as 2-point-something%. So more than half is saved in terms of interest payment if it's done in RMB. Why is that? Because right now, the RMB pool of liquidity sitting in Chinese banks, coming from savings of the Chinese people, are so massive. It's the largest pool of untapped liquidity in the world today. And given the fact that in order to address inflation, US has been raising interest rates left and right, and they talked about lowering rates, but still have not done so, and probably will not done so immediately. So you end up with a situation in which the cost of borrowing in dollars is significantly higher than borrowing in RMB. For China, of course, it's good, because if it's bonds issued in RMB, the recipient will receive RMB and will end up using the RMB to buy services and equipment and construction and machinery and industrialization and buy these services and goods from China with the RMB that they accumulate. So it's actually beneficial for both sides. China gets to export some of its goods and services, and the borrowing party from the Arab countries will end up with very significant savings in interest rate and also direct access to a very large liquidity pool. The finance side has also welcomed financial institutions of the Arab League countries to join the CHIPS, which is the Chinese settlement system, and then also to jointly develop, to collaborate in the development of digital currency. China has become quite well versed in the digital currency side and has become quite advanced in this sector and can be helpful on the technology side and the practice side for Arab countries that would be interested in moving in this direction. Whether or not you're interested in moving in this direction, I think this will be applied more broadly internationally soon, and it's already beginning to happen. The third area of enhanced collaboration is in the energy sector. We know that 50% of China's oil and gas imports now come from the Middle East. But it's not just a question of commodities. It's a question of enhancing the value for both sides. In this context, Saudi Arabia is already beginning to move heavily into petrochemical process industrial side in both China and Saudi Arabia. So what's shipped out is not simply raw oil and could be further value-added refined products. At the same time, given the fact that China is a major user for petrochemicals, significant investments have already been made by Saudi Aramco, SABIC, and so on to develop and build refineries in China. We've seen a number of very large projects starting in China, and I could see similar development in other countries in the Middle East, with Chinese capital, with China also being the end user or the buyer of the end product. The other side that's significant in this is new and renewable sources of energy. The Middle East is filled with wonderful sunshine, sometimes a little too much. Certainly, solar and wind can be had at very low cost, given the advances in technology and the scale of production which have been accumulated in China. The efficiencies of scale is now reaching incredible levels, in creating really economies that will be very much cheaper than other conventional sources of energy. And in this context, on the commercial side, Chinese government will support Chinese enterprises working with Arabic countries and enterprises in increasing new and renewable sources of energy by at least 3 gigawatts. And that's significant because that will be very, very helpful for many of the smaller countries that don't have the capacity to really do it themselves. And China's experience, scale, and also its productive efficiencies will make this very meaningful for countries in the Arab League, for the Arab countries in general. In addition, there's a commitment for 3 billion RMB to be used by the Chinese government to support this movement or this development of how to import more from the Arab countries to create a more balanced trade flow, and including a commitment to import more agricultural product from the Arab countries, which is currently a very significant portion of their export, in addition to energy sources. So this will be very helpful for the farmers in the Arab countries if China buys more of its agricultural produce. The fifth area is people-to-people exchange, cultural exchange. I remember doing a program a couple of days ago about how UAE is now at over 70,000 children learning Chinese in 171 schools. And the same thing is now happening in Saudi Arabia, where students are required to take 2 Chinese courses per week. And this will enhance the possibility of better communication and exchange between those countries and China. There is now a commitment to strive to achieve 10 million mutual visits between China and Arab countries over the course of the next 5 years. Now, I think this may be a very ambitious target to achieve, but certainly achievable. So it's really moving in a very quick direction. And I think these exchanges, plus the exchanges of commitment, China to invite hundreds of Arab League country officials, government officials to visit China, will also help in enhancing mutual understanding and exploring other areas of collaboration which may not have been covered so far. China is a very big country with a big economy, and there are many opportunities for Arab countries to collaborate with Chinese enterprises. So you have inbound and outbound. I think this is good for both sides. This is good for all.